What is going on, guys? We have set 6 coming out right around the corner in about a month from now. The release date is March 15th, as you see right here. It's called Wings of the Captain, and I'm going to go over what I think are the standout cards for the set, what I think is going to be played in decks, and why. I'm going to put timestamps at the bottom so you can see for each individual color. Some colors are going to be really short because you'll see. Okay, starting off with red, we have the new Inazuma, which is a Revolutionary Army card, so it's going to go into Bello Betty. Basically, it just gives Betty access to Banish, which is really strong against yellow specifically. Next up, we have another Revolutionary Army card. This is the Ivankov, and yeah, I mean, Ivankov, as you know, is one of the best cards in Betty already, but now they have another one, and this guy's pretty crazy too. Just allows you to get out another body, and yeah, this is a very big addition to the deck. And the last card that I think is going to be good for red is Raise Max, which is essentially just Gordon, just with, like, it's literally Gordon. Like, you just place him at the bottom of your deck. It's the same exact effect, and Gordon's already very good in specific red decks, specifically the red purple Law. So yeah, I mean, it's just now you can run 8 Gordons in your deck. So yeah. Moving on to green, Hody Jones is really bad. His ability kind of sucks, but the Fishmen are good. The new Fishman cards that we get, like the Fishman and the new Fishman Pirates, do look pretty strong, but since Hody Jones is not that great, unfortunately it seems like they're going to be pretty unplayable for now. But Hody Jones, the character, on the other hand, is really strong. One of the strongest cards of the set. It's for 7 Don. You get an 8k body that has Rush, and on play you can rest up to 2 of your opponent's characters or Don cards. So you could do like 1 Don, you can rest one of their Dons that they're going to be using for Rad Beam or something like that. Or if, like, you know that they only have like the 2 cost events, like you could rest 1 Don, rest one of their characters, or rest 2 characters, or rest 2 Don, like any combination. And he has Rush. Then you have to take a life. You have to take a card from your life to your hand. But that's a small price to pay for this ability right here. He is your finisher, and you don't even need a life card to be able to use that ability. Also, powerful finisher for Yamato. Next up, we have Ryuma, which I play in my Perona deck. This guy is a 4/6, and he's got on play and on KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters with 4 or less. That's a powerful effect. Even if you just get one, if you just get the on play effect, it's still a good card. And they're not really going to want to remove it. It's going to be a little tricky to remove in certain situations. So I think it's a solid body on the board. And yeah, especially in Perona, where you can rest a 4 or less for free, this card is like perfect in it. And the last green card is Zoro, of course. This card is being talked about a lot. This is also the card that has the manga rare in it as well. Yeah, I mean, this card is just something else. It's a 9/9. It's a little expensive, but I mean, it's expensive for a reason. You could attack with it 3 times in a single turn if you use 3 Don. Like, you could use 1 Don to attack again, and then 2 more Don to attack again. Like, it's actually crazy how strong this card is if it sticks. This is going to be like the top end for most green decks. Next up, we're moving to blue. We've got Gion. Once per turn, on your turn, when your opponent activates an event, you may place they must place 1 card from their hand to the bottom of their deck, and it's a 2k counter, and it's Navy, so just a strong 2k counter for Navy, just an option for them. Sticking with the Navy trend, we have Tashigi, who is just a 1 cost searcher for Navy, as opposed to Branu, which is 2, but now you have the 2 of them. This one doesn't bottom deck any card, or it doesn't put any cards to your trash, but I mean, there's no reason to not run this card. Next up, we have another card for Navy, which all these cards are pretty much just going to go into the Sakazuki deck, and it's going to be really good in there. We have Amano Murakumo Sword. Yeah, got it. 2 cost event that during your main, place up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 2 or less, and 1 that's with a 1 or less at the bottom of your opponent's deck in any order. So it's like a double Houndblaze kind of. It's like Rob Lucci, but putting them to the bottom of the deck, and for 2 less, but you don't get the body. There's a lot of lists in the next set from what we've seen from Japan that are running at least 1 copy of this in their deck. And yeah, this card seems very solid. And then last but not least, for blue, we have this. We have White Snake, which is basically just a card for Nami, just because you draw a card. It's a counter card. It's an event that draws a card. Now onto purple. And purple, most of the card, pretty much every single card that's good in here. I mean, most of the cards in the set are for the Germa, for Reiju, for the leader. So they're basically like the whole Germa package is pretty good in that deck. But otherwise, like, these cards are not playable in like anything else except for one card, and that card is Reiju. So Reiju, if you play the 2 cost, then you can -1 and trash this character to get the bigger one, which is 4 cost, from your hand or your trash onto the field. And when this is summoned, then if you have less Don than your opponent and you have 5 or less cards in your hand, then you draw 2. So it's a good way to establish a body on the board while not losing any card advantage. And if you know purple, purple does like to minus. So if you only minus 1 time, actually, then you will be at equal or less Don than your opponent. So in most cases, unless they're minusing as well. So this can fit in a decent amount of purple decks, actually. But the one in specific is, besides Reiju, is going to be red purple law. They do really like this card because they're always minusing Don. And one thing that deck has been missing was just some draw power. So yeah, this card fits in there just right. And the alternate art is pretty good looking. All right, moving on to black, we've got Absalom, who is really strong in Gecko Moria. We've got like some nice Thriller Bark cards in here. He's a 4/5 with counter, and you can return 2 cards from your trash to the bottom of your deck to KO a 2 or less. So, I mean, of course, black has access to cost reduction, so it's very simple to combo out with this. And then, of course, we have Gecko. This card is one of the strongest cards in the whole set. Maybe the strongest, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's an 8/9, and when you play it, you can choose a 4 or less character and a 2 or less character, and you play both of them from your trash. And one of them is going to come in rested. So what? Like you usually play a 2 or less. So you target like Branu, so you get a search off, and then you play like a Kuzan or a Borsalino, and all of a sudden your board is looking pretty good. Or you play some of the cards, like the card that we just saw, Absalom. So you play maybe like a Helmeppo first, like something like a Suru to reduce your opponent's card, and then you play Absalom, or you play a Lucci or something like that. There's so many options with this card. This card can just builds a board, and you're gonna be seeing this a lot. Another great card for Gecko Moria is going to be Dr. Hogbach. He's a 4/5 with 1k counter again, and you return 2 cards from your trash to the bottom of your deck, and then you add a Thriller Bark Pirate card from your trash to your hand. So you can get anything with this, but usually the target is going to be Gecko Moria, the 8-drop that we just looked at, which is just really strong to set up for the future turns. Then we have Victoria Sindri, who is the 2k counter for Thriller Bark, and if your leader is Thriller Bark, then you trash the top 5 cards of your deck. So just a really great way to get stuff in your trash for those future turns, like with Gecko, or with just your leader ability in general. And you can also bring it back with Gecko if you want. And the last card that's really, really strong for black is going to be Perona, who is another 4/5. It's got 2k counter, and on play, if your opponent has 5 or more cards in their hand, you get to choose one of these effects. You get to either make them trash a card from their hand, which is already really strong, or you can give them -3. You can give a card -3 cost. So, I mean, this card is just like, there's like no downside to this card. It's a 2k counter too, somehow. I don't even understand that part. But yeah, you're usually going to be doing the trash 1 effect, and it's so easy for your opponent to have 5 or more cards in their hand. So this card seems exceptional. Moving on to everybody's favorite color, yellow. We're starting out strong here because it's a 2/3, which doesn't really matter too much. It could actually with Yamato's effect, but yeah, you're going to be playing this in Yamato. It has 1k counter as well, and on play, you could give one of your leaders or characters banish for the turn. Typically going to be wanting to use this on your leader, on Yamato, to get a double attack banish, which is insanely strong. And then if that's not even strong enough, it has a trigger that's basically just a Thunderbolt. You could kill something that's 5 or less. So this card is on crack. Yeah. Then we have Kiku Nojo, who is a 4/6. On KO, if your opponent has 3 or less life, add 1 card from the top of your deck to your life cards. And if you're playing Yamato, if you get one swing off of your leader, they're going to be 3 or less life already. So this should always pretty much be active. And it also has a trigger that if your opponent has 3 or less life, then you just straight out play it. And maybe you want to set up one of those other cards into your life, and you can do that with Kazuki Hiyori, who is a 2k. It's got a 2k counter, and its on play is you can add a card from your life to your hand, and then you can add 1 card from your hand to the top of your life. So you can just set up something spicy for your opponent to walk into. Obviously, the downside is that they know that you set it up, so maybe they play around it a little bit, but sometimes you can't really play around it. And then we've got Kazuki Momonosuke, who is a 5/6, and he's a blocker. And on top of that, on play, you can add 1 Land of Wano type character other than him to the top or bottom of your life face up. So you can add that card that we just saw. You could play that card, get its value, and then add it to there, add it to your life. Then you get the 2k back into your hand. Like, this guy is really nice, and he's a blocker. Like, this guy's nice. Every color pretty much has a 0 cost event that gives plus 3k for trashing a card, but yellow is getting one, which is super strong. Anything in yellow is just good. And then trigger, it's got a trigger as well, which is basically the Enel effect. If you have 0 life cards, you may add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to your life, and then you trash a card from your hand. So it has to be when you're at 0, so this has to be your last life. But yeah, this card is good. It's going to be a solid include in NL, I'm sure. And yeah, there's a decent amount of counterless cards in yellow that are very strong, so this helps a lot. And then the last card is Reject, which is a 4 cost event. Choose 1, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. And then also, if your opponent has 1 life card, you could deal 1 damage to your opponent. And then you have to add 1 from your life to your hand. So it's got a couple, I mean, both of those effects could be pretty dang solid, and it's a Sky Island card as well, so depending on what you're running in your deck, you could search it out. And if you're playing Enel, you're probably not going to be dying anytime soon, so maybe taking that 1 life to your hand is totally fine. And it has trigger. Like, this card seems pretty nice to me. Moving on to some honorable mentions, we've got Sanji, who is a 9/9 blue card here, and on play, reveal 1 card from the top of your deck and play. If it's a character that costs 9 or less, you can just straight out play it. I mean, blue is notorious for having these effects that stack cards on their deck, so if you plan it perfectly, I think you could pull off some pretty crazy combos with this. Then we have Charlotte Pudding, who is a 4/4 with 1k counter, and on play, your opponent returns all cards to their hand, to their deck, and shuffles their deck, and then they draw 5 cards. I think this card is pretty meta dependent. If there's a lot of decks that have plenty of cards in their hand, like, this does just give blue access to dealing with that. Not all colors can deal with that, so I think it's an interesting card. I don't know if it's ever going to really see that much play. Maybe if it had 2k counter for sure, but yeah. And then the last card is a 2k counter. It's Suru, who's a 5/4. It's a navy type as well, and you can trash 2 cards from your hand to make your opponent return one of their characters to their hand. So yes, it does seem pretty expensive to use, but this card can actually be pretty insane if you're playing against a deck that only puts out like 1 body at a time. Maybe if they just play like a Yamato and that's their whole board, it's just like this 9 drop on the board. They just played like the new Zoro that we went over. You can get a lot of value out of this card just by slowing, like, the tempo swing would be pretty big, but it's very situational. Your opponent would have to have no other characters on the board that are like low cost in order to get value, but it is a 2k, so I think it's a consideration in some decks depending on the meta. But that is my list of cards to look out for the new set. Let me know what you think down below. Did I miss any cards? I don't think I did, but let me know. And I hope you like this kind of video. I also do like to make a video when we get closer to the set. I'm going to make a video on the cards that you should be looking out for when you get into those pre-release tournaments where you have to draft a deck with the packs that you pull, that you open. Hope you check out that when it comes out, and I hope you're liking the content. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.